Hi there, welcome to this exam walkthrough for English Literature Paper 1, which is the Shakespeare and Christmas Carol paper. In this session we're just going to focus on Macbeth and, if we have time, on Christmas Carol, focusing really on what you need to do in order to maximise your marks in the exam. Starting with, as soon as you get into the exam and you've got your slip of paper on your table that has your name and candidate number, as soon as you sit down, and you can't necessarily begin writing on your exam paper until an invigilator tells you, but you can start making some notes about things you know you're going to need to do. So what I would be doing is reminding myself of all the key skills for this exam paper. So I know I'm going to have to talk about context. I know I'm going to have to talk about language, form and structure. I'm going to have to talk about the writer at work, referring to their name. I'm going to have to, if I can remember, some quotes or textual referencing. I'm going to have to try and interpret, perhaps using P or Peel. I'm going to just remind myself of the sorts of skills that we need for this paper. So let's have a look then. Shakespeare in the 19th century novel. You may have studied different texts, but in my school we do Macbeth. And so if you once open your paper, you'll see a number of texts and a number of... the exam paper itself is quite long. Now, please don't do what some students do, which is end up trying to write about everything, even text sometimes they haven't read. So if you're doing Macbeth, you can expect that to be the first text in the paper. So this is what your exam question will look like. You've got, now it says either, but this refers to, it could be either Macbeth or Romeo and Juliet. You only get one question. There's no choice here. Now, it will always follow the same format, which is an extract followed by thinking about the play as a whole. Okay, so we'll start off by thinking about the extract that you're given. Now, the exam board are helpful in that they tell you where it comes from, which might just help you sort of trigger some ideas. What else goes on there? It's the early part of the play. What can you remember about that? And also, it's given us a bit here, helpfully, of information about, what's happening in and around this time. Well, that Lady Macbeth has just received the news that King Duncan will be coming to the castle that night. So we have got some information. Don't rush past this to go straight to the extract, because this might remind us of certain things. So what's happened by this point in the play? Well, we've had the witches making predictions about Macbeth becoming king. We've had Macbeth has been fighting for King Duncan and has been sort of widely praised, hasn't he? He's been told that he's brave and a loyal sort of soldier. So what are we looking to try and do? Now, there's two approaches here. Some students will write about the extract and then they'll write about the rest of the play, and that approach is absolutely fine. If you find it easier and more straightforward to think, right, I'm going to do all my analysis of this and then I'll move on to the play, that's fine. Some students will try and incorporate the two, so they'll make a point here about something they've seen in the extract and then they'll link it to something from another point in the play that sort of triggers off an idea or an avenue that they want to go down. Either approach, find out which one works for you. And there's no kind of better approach. The thing that you will need to make sure you've done though is talk about the extract and talk about the rest of the play. Now, if it was me, as soon as I look at this, I'd start off with, well, thinking firstly about what's happened, at this point. Who is here? Lady Macbeth is speaking. What can I remember about her? And then I will start looking to annotate my extract here, and I might spend as much as 4 or 5 minutes of my time doing that. So looking for sort of techniques if I can, whether that's sort of language techniques or dramatic techniques, and we think about some of that language here where we, that imperative, for example, unsex me here, that command. So we know that she wants to cast off her femininity and become more masculine and all the kind of stereotypical things that are associated with that time. So we would look at thinking about, take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers. So we've got this very, savage language where she wants to replace her breast milk with gall, which is poison. And when she talks about murdering ministers, she's talking about evil spirits. Now that might trigger a memory for me, and that might make me think about the witches. So I've already got some connections I could make here. You'd spend quite a bit of time, longer than I'll spend here, annotating this for things that I find interesting, before then moving on to trying to answer my question, which is, looking at Lady Macbeth as a powerful woman. So we've got to keep this in mind, this particular focus. Some people might just go straight to the bullet point, how does he present Lady Macbeth? But you've got to keep this in mind. Now, the exam board have said that the best students have kind of a critical perspective in mind. Now, what I mean by that is that they have their own viewpoint. So they're going to start off by thinking, yeah, she is really powerful, and I'm going to spend this essay arguing why I can see that. So we might say, immediately she's given the soliloquy alone on stage. She is there, central to the action. Everyone's eyes are on her. Unusual for the time that it's written, bringing in my context. So those very best responses, they bring in a critical opinion, idea, point of view, which they kind of argue throughout their essay. Now, so we would aim then probably to try and, if we can, to do perhaps 3 Peel points on the first bullet point, and then something similar for the second, for both bullet points. Now, when we talk about the play as a whole, what I would say to my students is to focus on the beginning, middle, and if we can, end. And for the 3 points, because that gives us a nice sense of structure, particularly how something develops as a character, or how somebody rather develops as a character. Now, you may get a question on a theme, and again, I would use this approach of, how do we see the theme in the beginning? What about the middle? What about the end? Now, you may struggle with the time to do 3 Peel points for each. Definitely try to do 2 if you're struggling for time. Make sure you've got a couple of different points that you're going to talk about. But just to remind you that when it's talking about the rest of the play as a whole, this could be, you might refer to something that is a few lines further on from this. So you might decide to think about later in Act 1, Scene 5, when Macbeth arrives home and she's telling him, we're going to kill Duncan, leave everything to me. So don't feel that this excludes you from writing about, lines that have come just before or just after the extract you've been given. So you're remembering, really, the key thing for this is that you are focusing so specifically on, I'm going to run out of space here, Shakespeare's purpose, why you think he has done things, why has he included a soliloquy here, why has he included this image, how does that add to the impression of Lady Macbeth that we've been given, and that you're trying to use analytical and evaluative language as well. I think a good place to bring in the context is when you deal with this second bullet point, but you can incorporate that context any time, remembering that context is, yes, the time it was written, but also things like the genre. So it's a tragedy, and that also would fit in. So trying to incorporate it really within your analysis. Okay, it looks like we'll run out of time on this video clip, so check out the next one where I'll go into what we need to do for Christmas Carol.